Okay, we are live. So, welcome back to my channel. Let's start with the big headline that I wanted to show you guys. This is a article that came out of The Hill. If you're not familiar, they're a pretty substantial news outlet. And the headline reads, U.S. added 235,000 jobs in August, quote unquote, a massive slowdown. You know, um, I have talked about this before, that what I want to do with this channel is put headlines like this in the proper context. So there's a little bit less hysteria, a little bit less, uh, I don't know, emotionalism, right? And look at the cold, hard data. Now, I'm not saying that, this number is great. It's not great, right? There's no sugarcoating that. And that's neither the point of my channel either, right? I want to give you objective analysis of economic data from an economist's point of view, right? So we have this number, 235K. It was a disappointment, right? And so there was a lot of other news outlets talking about this. It was all over the news. And I felt like, yeah, we really need to talk about it because despite the fact that it's a low number and it's a disappointment, I think it's also important to put it in proper context in terms of, let's say, what's causing this? Why did this happen? Whenever you see a headline like this, right, the question that people really should be asking themselves is not only what happened, but why it happened, right? So we do want to kind of dig into the numbers. I think I can give you some, uh, not reassurance. I don't want to seem like, I want to make this better than what it really is. But when I say proper context, I'm talking about, a better understanding of what this number means in relations to the general economy and what has happened over the last year and a half. Okay, so with all that said, okay, let's get into some of the data. So this is a graphic that I thought was very well done in the New York Times. Sometimes the news outlets do a good job, at least with their graphics, in terms of reporting economic news. And so I thought it would be a good idea for us to take a breath, right? Because I know the number was disappointing. Take a breath and realize how deep the job losses were. And so let's take a look at this graphic. This is basically showing you, cumulative a change in jobs since before the pandemic by industry. So it starts right before the pandemic got really serious and all the lockdowns happened, the economy shut down, and it's giving you an indication of how much was lost and how far we've come in terms of recovering the total losses, right? For example, here you see in constructions, um, when the pandemic hit and the lockdown happened, we lost, you know, um, looks like about a million jobs, and we still have 232,000 since February 2020 to recover, right? So construction, retail, and manufacturing. I mean, it's all just this massive drop that happens, and then we're starting to have this recovery. And the biggest thing that you want to notice, okay, retail got hit hard too, but look at the graphic in terms of leisure and hospitality. I mean, it doesn't, it makes sense. So at this point, when the lockdown happened, right, we lost 16.9 million jobs in only leisure and hospitality. Look at the drop. And it makes sense that it happened in this sector of the economy because, right, this is all the, restaurants and food industry and hospitality, uh, et cetera, et cetera. And all those places were shut down. So look at the loss in jobs, since April. So, and again, it's important to mention the actual source of the numbers, and this comes from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So look at that drop. It's really incredible. And um, the thing to note about this is not only do we have the biggest drop in leisure and hospitality, but in the August um, job report, it's been So it's been put out by the the Bureau of Labor Statistics that there were no gains in jobs in leisure and hospitality, which is kind of a stunning thing, right? The net effect of that is basically zero. There were no new additional jobs. So um, that fact itself is rather stunning, but I think also indicative of what we're getting at, which is the actual cause of this slowdown, the slowdown in recovery. So um, moving on, okay, you get a better idea about um, the gains and losses by this graphic, and I need to give proper credit. This is from Mish Talk, you know. But once again, this is numbers coming from Bureau of Labor Statistics, and so here it's highlighted: leisure and hospitality, zero. Wow. Transportation did all right. Manufacturing is improving. Um, but yeah, leisure and hospitality uh, made no gains for the month of August. So that's quite a stunning number. I don't think I've seen that or rarely ever seen a sector of the economy get no gains in a massive recovery from a downturn like this. So we need to kind of wrap our heads around exactly what's going on, right? Now, in terms of the actual payroll and the loss of jobs, I do want to present this um, uh, chart in front of you because I think it does give us a little bit of better perspective. We had a massive, massive job losses. There's no doubt about that. And when you see this gray area right here, this is the official duration of the recession, right? And even though the recession is over and we're going through a recovery process, you can see in this line right here where we start to recover, right? Um, but more than that, I think this graphic helps us to understand we've made a lot of progress. We have. We've made a lot of progress in the recovery, and the key factor, of course, has been the vaccination program, right? And again, I'm not interested in politics. I'm interested in cold hard facts, economic data, and numbers. And when you look at this massive drop and how, and we've come substantially. There's been a great deal of recovery in the job market. So it helps to soothe the nerves, you know, for us to look at just 1 month and say, hey, you know what? The recovery is dead. Um, that's not the right conclusion, right? And it's typical practice for statisticians and economists to say 1 month obviously does not make a trend, right? And the previous 2 months, we had job increases about 900,000 and over a million, right? And so this sudden drop is definitely concerning because it was unexpected. The consensus of economists, depending on which group that you consult, was between, for I think 600,000 to 900,000, right? Some economists are even saying over a million, you know, and for us to have only 255,000, obviously it's concerning, and we really need to look into the nature of that sharp drop, right? Now, I gave a previous video, I did a live stream um, talking about the job numbers in the recovery, you know, um, and making some not predictions, but general assessments about, what's happening with the recovery, and I said we're still pretty much on track. And the question is, I mean, does this number shake my faith? Um, yes and no, right? Let me explain that as we get further into the data. Okay, so um, another interesting fact that was reported also is that despite the fact that we only added 235,000 jobs, unemployment rate actually dropped from 5.4% to 5.2%. Now, you might wonder exactly what's going on. I think I've touched upon this subject in previous videos, but the main reason why there seems to be a contradiction or mismatch between, so little jobs added and the unemployment rate is that they are actually deriving their numbers from different data sources. Okay, I talked in more detail about that, but that's just a brief explanation. So there's no conspiracy going on here. It's just the way the government statistics are reported. And speaking of, the conspiracy stuff, some of the stuff that's going around, let me just uh, present this table for you because unfortunately I've read a lot of online comments talking about how the government is playing games with the unemployment rate. There's political influence and all that stuff. So let me address some of those rumors very quickly, which is that I'm personally friends with an economist, and she has friends in the Bureau of Labor Statistics who do their work every day, and she has talked about the way they do things, the protocol in terms of how they verify accuracy and stuff. And I can tell you that they take their work very seriously, and they would take umbrage, you know, uh, that despite all their efforts in being objective in their analysis, that there's all this stories about being political influence and all that kind of stuff. That's typically not the case, and I think one of the biggest reasons why there is a misunderstanding, just to go over it really quickly, is that the public is typically aware of um, this measure of unemployment, which is called the U3. Now, you can see in this chart that there is actually different types of measurements or metrics about unemployment. And the reason why we have this is because statisticians and economists and other professionals, they want to measure unemployment in different ways to get a grasp on what's happening with the economy. So, U3 is quote unquote the unofficial unemployment rate, which is quoted in the mainstream press, and it is a measure of total employed as a percentage of the civilian labor force, and of course unofficial, um, employment rate. And I've seen some of the talk about people saying, "Hey, you know what about all the people who are working part time? They're underutilized. They want a full time job, but they can't find it. What about all the people who are discouraged and they can't find work? And so, uh, the official definition, the U3 definition of unemployment no longer counts them, and so it's manipulation, and it's management of perception." That's not really true. There's also U6, total unemployed, which is total unemployed plus all persons marginally attached to the labor force plus total employed part-time for economic reasons, etc., etc. So let's not dig into all the technical details, but I just want to point out that a lot of the bizarre stories about data manipulation of the unemployment rate really has to do with the fact that people don't understand that there are more than one metrics in terms of how economists measure unemployment rate. So just to put that before you, so that next time you hear all this stuff, you understand what's really happening. But anyways, let us continue. Um, so with that said, here's another puzzling fact. Well, not really puzzling, but let's get into this. One of the positive things about the data on leisure and hospitality industry is that wage gains are accelerating. Now, I'm not going to say that it's a massive gain, but the fact that they are going up as a percentage, um, relative to other industries is obviously good news for workers in that industry. I think they well deserve it. A lot of them worked through the dangers of the pandemic, had to deal with, irate customers. You have seen the stories in the news. We don't have to belabor the point, but here we have this odd situation in the unemployment numbers, right? So first of all, number one, the 235K was disappointing. Okay, no doubt about that. What's happening? What's causing this? And we note something odd about the numbers, which is leisure and hospitality, as a net effect, didn't add any, um, any new workers, um, as estimated by the Labor Department for the month of August, right? And yet, their wages are going up very quickly. Well, obviously, there's great demand, and it's forcing companies to increase. what they pay, their hourly rate and all that. I've made a number of videos about the labor shortage, talking in great detail about what's happening here. But so what's really happening here, right? Um, the overall job numbers are down. Um, Leisure and hospitality is particularly hard hit in terms of not gaining any jobs. And consequently, because of the reluctance, obviously, of people getting to fill these positions, wages are going up, and that's beneficial for the people who are still in that industry. And it really points to um, what I talked about in the previous video, which is the impact of the Delta variant on the economy. Now, when I talked about it in the previous video, I said that there's some preliminary data that it's having a dampening effect, and I was hoping that it wouldn't seriously damage the recovery. I'm gonna say that we still don't know that for sure, right? Because again, we only have August data. If next month's data shows a substantial improvement, then we can say, okay, this is a blip on the radar, and it's not a long-term trend. But we know from the health statistics and the COVID trackers that hospitalizations and deaths are very serious. They're actually going up, and yeah, there's no doubt that they're having an impact on the job recovery, which is indicated in particular by leisure and hospitality because they are particularly hard hit about safety protocols and concerns about the virus. Right now, some of you may be wondering, well, what about the unemployment benefits? Right? Is that keeping people out of the workforce at all? Seems to be a lot of anger in the public because of this. And I talked about the data that's coming in with regards to that. And so far, the answer is no, right? Again, preliminary data. We won't know the final answer until probably sometime next year or maybe a couple of years from now when we sift through all the data. But just to reassure you, right? The states that um, have ended the unemployment benefits are actually seeing a lower rate of job creation than states that have continued it. So that might sound like a contradiction, but the data is the data. And we'll go into it in further detail in some follow up videos that I intend to do. But anyway, so, with the clue that leisure and hospitality seems particularly hard hit, especially in the sense that people don't want to fill these jobs. What's going on? I mean, and I think we can pretty much summarize it by this news article. Um, you know, um, the recovery was going full steam, but we do know that the Delta variant has been coming on strong, and I think it's finally time to admit that it is a real threat to the economic recovery. Now, I'm not ready to say it's going to stop it, right? Because we don't have that data yet. Okay, we still need to have at least 2 or 3 more months of data to be sure about this, but um, the U.S. added less than one third of the jobs expected in August. The overall consensus of the economists, is that we had a very, very steep and rapid, unprecedented drop in jobs. But as the economy opens up again, we're going to have a corresponding bounce back, kind of like a rubber band, right? So what has stopped this? It's obvious. I think it's not just one thing, but definitely I think we need to talk about the impact of the Delta variant on the economy. You know, um, and President Biden, of course, is promoting vaccination in the midst of the Delta wave of infections and stuff. Okay, and again, my channel is not about politics. Okay, but it's clear the vaccination program is crucial to the economic recovery, to the job recovery that we all want to happen. Okay, so what's my conclusion on this? Which is that, um, is the Delta variant the cause of this significantly lower number in terms of jobs added? I think it's possible. I think August is not conclusive, but it is a warning sign to us, right? So, Um, you know, if you're watching this video, um, I would encourage you, if at all possible, as your personal choice to get vaccinated, because I do think that it's good for the economic recovery and for the economy to open up again. So anyway, so I think that puts the August number in proper context. It's not time to panic, but it is a cause for concern, right? So anyways, if you like this video, please give me a like. It really helps with the algorithm, and I'm trying to promote rational economic analysis instead of the clickbait headlines that are around so much nowadays. So, I could really use your help with that mission. Anyways, so that's